Recording. Welcome, fellow Toastmasters, and I don't see any guests yet, but if we have any, you're welcome too. This meeting of online presenters has now begun. Guests, please note that in order to be a member of our club, you must be a current or a former active member of Toastmasters International and have completed at least 6 Toastmasters official speeches. If you have substantial relevant presentation experience, you can apply for membership by demonstrating your abilities in a 2 to 3 minute speech delivered right here in our club. All requests for membership are subject to approval by the members of the club. If you have not already done so, please change your panel to ensure that it shows your name and your role if you have one. Simply click on your panel and hit rename to do so. We have members and guests from many countries all over the world. Thus, as a professional organization, we ask that you please be aware of language and word usage so that it would not be offensive to cultural differences. Please note that we are recording this meeting and we might use this video and audio for club marketing purposes. Also, please mute your mic when you are not speaking. And Toastmasters, join me in welcoming our club president, DTM Lou Brown. Lou, over to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Sergeant at Arms. Welcome, everybody. I see we have a guest that popped in a little while ago. Lillian, nice to see you. And I believe this could be your 3rd, maybe 4th time visiting us, so welcome back. Appreciate that. And we'll certainly hear from you, your thoughts on today, this afternoon, tonight's meeting. When we get near the end. We are going to dive right into things. We have 3 wonderful speakers, so a full agenda. I'm going to pass control over to our Toastmaster of the day, Carolina Ramirez.
Thank you very much. During the last decades, we have seen the number of divorces increase considerably and decrease the number of marriages. Apparently, the phrase "until death do us part" is a thing of the past. Why do we fail when choosing our partner? Argentine psychologist Walter states that we tend to fall in love with love and make decisions based on the fact that the force of love will solve all problems. In addition, some people relate love with sacrifice. This psychologist gives an example of the purchase of a property. We look at the neighbors, the quality of the construction, the location, the payment methods, and all the benefits that the decision will bring in the long term. However, when choosing our couple, we are apparently less rational, which would be a mistake if we think that marriage is a much more important contract than the purchase of a property. According to Walter Rizzo, the perfect combination is attraction, friendship, empathy, and compatibility in the essentials of life. Opposites sometimes crash. What do you think? And now it's time to start with the meeting. The people who will be helping me with this meeting is the timer. Please, Hector, could you explain your role?
Absolutely. As Toastmasters, we know the importance of Woodrow Wilson maximum. Be brilliant, be brief, be gone. And I will be helping you time your speech and your participations using my background as a way to indicate how far are you in your speech. You will see, if you're a speaker, my background going green when you reach your 5 minutes, yellow at 6, red at 7 for our table topics, 1, 1.5, and 2, and for evaluators, 2, 2.5, and 3. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Hector. And you need to pay attention as well to your grants. And Richard Derling, he will be helping us in that task. Richard?
Good evening, everybody. I am going to be using my listening skills to hear for all kinds of different phrases and words that people tend to use to connect thoughts. Things like and, so, those sorts of things I'm going to be listening for and trying to keep track of how many times anyone does say it. And I will report at the end of the meeting. Back to you, Carolina.
Thank you very much, Rick. And the grammarian today is April Elise.
As the grammarian, it is my responsibility to pay close attention to all speakers, listening carefully to their language usage. I will take note of any misusage of the English language as well as outstanding usage as well. I will also listen for usage of today's word of the day, which is forbearing, which is an adjective and means to be patient and to be restrained. So please try to use the word of the day. I will present my report in which I will be kind and forbearing in my reports. When called upon, I will give my report at the end. Over to you, Toastmaster Carolina.
Thank you very much, April. And now the watcher, Jim. Could you explain your role, please?
With pleasure, Madam Toastmaster. We just heard from the grammarian of this evening. Think of me as the watcher, think of me as the visual grammarian. I'm going to be watching everybody, not just when they're speaking, but when they're listening as well. Anytime that they're participating in the meeting, I'm going to be watching them and I'm going to be noting any visual problems that we might have, although I'm hoping that we're not going to have any. I'm also going to be applauding at the end of the meeting those members who have an exceptionally strong video presence. And I'll give my report at the end of the meeting, Madam Toastmaster.
Great, thank you very much, Jim. Now, the chat monitor, Lucas.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. As the chat monitor, I'm going to monitor the chat to see if there's anything insightful or otherwise beneficial for the group and report back to everyone in the meeting towards the end. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Lucas. And the vote counter, Andre. Please.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster of the evening. I'm Andre Smalenka, and my role for today is counting votes. I will be counting votes for 3 parts of the evening. First, prepared speeches. Second, table topics contest. And third, it will be evaluation contest. What I will be using sophisticated vote counting equipment given to us by David Carr. Well, he's genius and he's running our website and helping us to manage online presence. So look out for the link and click on the link and cast your vote there. And I'll come back to you with the results at the end of the meeting.
Great, thank you very much, Andre. Now it's time to listen to our speakers, their prepared speeches for today. Our first speaker is beginning the strategic relation path this evening. In her icebreaker, she will let us know about some of the benefits she has derived from becoming involved in causes that are personal to her, while encouraging us to do the same. Please welcome Marianne Grady with her speech, Just Because.
Good evening, my friends. Tonight, I am going to be talking about some of the things that I've learned and gotten from supporting a cause. So what is a cause? It's a goal or principle served with dedication. Almost 15 years ago, my husband came home from the gym. He had a brochure in his hand. It was the gym sponsoring a cycling team for the Jersey Shore Tour de Cure. This event was designed to raise money for the American Diabetes Association. Mayor, this is going to be great for us. You have diabetes. We're both trying to get more fit. We got to enter this. I took that brochure out of his hand and I perused it. as I looked at it, I was thinking it's a great idea in theory, but I had recently lost a significant amount of weight and I was not fit at this time. And the idea of riding with all these gym people in their tight spandex outfits, I just couldn't. I said, I'll think about it. And I started ruminating for the next few days. I came up with a different idea. I called my husband back. John, what do you think? How about if we have our own team? He's like, are you sure? I said, yes, I am. And I went online and registered the Grady Bunch in the Family and Friends division of this event. Now, I was reading on the website that millions of people have diabetes and millions more have prediabetes. So this is an important cause. I wanted to be successful. So I began to invite family, friends, coworkers, every single person I knew to ride with us. Now, each rider was supposed to raise a minimum of $175, but most raised more. And fundraising was easy for me because it was personal and I was passionate about it. I was getting so much more than donations from this process. I was getting encouragement, camaraderie, and lots of confidence. I felt like I was becoming a leader. People were looking at me like I was some kind of mover and shaker here. Well, tour day came. And when I went in and registered, guess what they gave me? A spandex jersey. Well, at least I looked the part. But despite the fact that I was wearing spandex, I was not a cyclist. I was praying that I would be able to complete the 10-mile ride. The weather was magnificent. There was a salty breeze blowing off the ocean, and my heart soared because I had 25 people supporting me and riding with me. These were my family, friends, and coworkers. 2 people rode the Century, which is 100 miles. Some rode 62, another group rode 35, and a bunch rode 10 miles with me. Now, I know a lot of you are probably saying, Marianne, 10 miles on a bike is really not that far. But for me, the person who was previously fat, unhappy with herself, and unfit, the feeling of accomplishment I got when I completed it was as if I had ridden the 100 miles. Now, after the ride, there was a celebration in the park where they announced that the Grady Bunch had raised in excess of $17,000. And that was more money than any other team in the tour and more than the gym team. So why am I telling you this? Because everyone here has the ability to support a cause in some way. You don't have to be the captain of a cycling team. You could work in the food bank. You could deliver meals. You can sit and chat with the elderly. There are scores of volunteer opportunities. And each of us has different talents and gifts. And I challenge you to use yours to support a cause or help others. You're likely to feel an amazing sense of personal satisfaction, and you may grow as a person as well. Choosing a cause that's personal to you is a great way to get started. And it helps you develop passion for what you're doing as well. So if somebody in your family has cancer, maybe you want to work with the American Cancer Society. If your child or your spouse was deployed, maybe it's going to be a military group for you. But doing this is a wonderful way to keep from feeling like a victim when disease or an odd situation hits close to home. And when you're personally connected to the cause, it makes it a lot easier for people to want to support you. Now, when the pandemic is over, it is my goal to get involved as an advocate for living kidney donation. And as some of you know, I received a kidney from my son in 2019. Basically, he saved my life. And in my heart, I believe that if people truly understood that they had the ability to save a life, and so many people are dying every day from kidney failure, that more people would do it. I think they just don't know about it. If you could save somebody's life, would you? Well, wish me luck. Oh, and why should you support a cause? because you can. Back to you, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Marianne. Very inspiring. It's Columbus Day in the US next week. And today, Graham will be telling us about Columbus, but maybe not the Columbus you know. His speech from level 3 of the presentation mastery path and is the Creating Effective Visual Aids project. This is a modified version of a presentation that Graham makes to cruise ship passengers, and it is called How America Got in the Way of the Second Coming. How America Got in the Way of the Second Coming, Graham Cairns. Welcome, Graham. You are muted.
In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. Well, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, guests, we all know how Columbus was standing up against the reactionary Catholic Church, which kept saying that the world was flat. He was a Renaissance man, a great leader, a figure who broke the shackles of conformity. He was a rugged individualist. Well, I got to tell you, unfortunately, nope, 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 and nope. In fact, that view of Columbus comes from a biography by Washington Irving, and it casts Columbus as a prototype of American exceptionalism, representing everything that Americans would like to think of themselves. It could be argued instead that Columbus was in fact a religious nutter, a deluded fool, an appalling administrator, and something of a stuffed shirt. By a series of wild, irresponsible, and quite frankly, willfully wrong assumptions, Columbus launched what he called the enterprise of the Indies to reach Asia by heading west. And in doing so, he stumbled on the Americas in an act that has been called one of the most important events in world history. But until the very end of his life, Columbus would insist that he hadn't in fact discovered new continents, but instead had reached the old rich lands of Asia. So how did this come about? Well, born as Christopher Colombo in 1451 in Genoa, the son of a weaver, Colombo was largely self-educated and shipped out on Genoese trade expeditions throughout the Mediterranean and the Atlantic. By the 1840s, he had conceived a plan which he called the Enterprise of the Indies, and the aim to reach the East Indies by sailing west. Now, the East Indies in this context didn't mean India so much as Asia in the broadest sense, including places such as China and Japan. Of course, Columbus wasn't the first to dream this, but what made him different was his faith in his own plan and his relentless effort at marshalling all available evidence of whatever reliability to support his case, even if in some cases it was demonstrably false. Now, there is a widely held belief, but entirely incorrect, that Columbus believed that the world was round while everybody else thought that the world was flat. Well, that's in fact simply not true. Every educated person in the world knew that it was round. They'd known that for more than a millennium. But what made Columbus different and spectacularly wrong compared to his contemporaries was his conclusion that the world was in fact much smaller than others thought. For his enterprise to be practical, the world had to be smaller, and so he relentlessly cherry-picked every authority he could find in geography to support his case. He overestimated quite radically the size of Asia, and he underestimated the globe's extent by about 20%. Columbus, in fact, believed that Asia was only about 3,800 kilometers sailing to the west. The real distance, 17,000 kilometers. And added to these miscalculations were his religious motives. You see, Columbus, to paraphrase the Blues Brothers, thought he was a man on a mission from God because the world was ending soon. The enterprise of the Indies, Columbus believed, was in fact part of a larger drama to carry Christianity to others to then help in the fight against what he saw as the Antichrist, the Muslims against whom the Crusades had been waged to regain Jerusalem. For Columbus, all of these pieces fit together perfectly. Well, at least in his mind. For example, there's the story of Marco Polo. Now, Polo had earlier said that the Khan of China had a good view of Christianity. In fact, the Khan of China had a good view of all religions, provided they didn't interfere with his rule. But Columbus believed that if the East could be reached more easily, then China could become a significant ally against the Muslim Antichrist and hasten the end times. Once that happened, Columbus believed we would see the second coming of Christ and the final advent of the kingdom of God, all by the mid-1700s. Well, it didn't quite happen. It took him 8 years to get the funding, but in 1492, he set sail with 3 ships, all tiny by today's standards. How tiny? Well, anybody who's ever sat in a Chevy Suburban, if you put 3 of those nose to tail, that's how tall, long the biggest ship was, just 17 meters. On board those tiny ships, the crew were unhappy. But despite the rumors, they weren't actually afraid that they're going to sail off the edge of the earth. No, what they were actually afraid of was that they were going to run out of food because the journey was going to be longer than Columbus thought. They very nearly did run out of food. But in October 1492, they spotted land and went ashore on a Caribbean island. Now, we're not quite sure which island it was. They'd arrived in the West Indies, even if Columbus believed it was the East Indies. In fact, there were 2 whopping great continents in the way, but he didn't believe that to his dying day. Of the people that Columbus first encountered, the Taino people and the Caribs were soon extinct. But oddly enough, many of their words remain in use today, such as Caribbean, canoe, hurricane, tobacco, barbecue. They all slept in hanging hammocks, which became standard on European ships. Indeed, the very word cannibal comes from the word for Caribs. One of the few other things to survive was Taino art, which is still created by artisans in the Dominican Republic for tourists like me. I bought this particular piece in a market in Santo Domingo. But Columbus himself, he was in 7th heaven. He was exultant in his conclusion, however wrong he was, of having found Asia. He left the colony behind, set off on to home to give people the good news, and then he was sent out on a second journey in 1493. But the problem was, Columbus was actually a pretty lousy administrator, and by 1496, he'd been ordered back home again to Spain to explain himself and the problem of his colonies. He was allowed to return for a 3rd voyage, and this time landed on the mainland of South America in what is now Venezuela. He was convinced that he had reached the edge of paradise, that the rivers flowing from the inland were in fact the 4 rivers described in the Bible. Yeah, well, not quite. He began writing, but didn't ever actually finish, a strange tome called the Book of Prophecies. Now, this is an apocalyptic vision of the end times, which he claimed had been hastened by his voyages that he still maintained had reached Asia, despite all of the evidence to the contrary. He died at the age of 55, a deeply bitter and resentful man who claimed to be the last he'd reached Asia, but nobody would believe him. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is how America actually got in the way of the second coming. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue, but what he found didn't hasten the end because he was, quite frankly, round the bend. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Graham. I learned some new facts about how America was conquered. Thank you for your speech. Our next speaker is working on the Visionary Communication Path, Level 2, Learning Your Style. Today, she will be presenting us Introduction to Toastmasters Mentoring, which main objective is to define how Toastmasters envisions mentoring and share some aspects of a previous experience as a mentee. Title, The Excited Protégé. Please welcome Angela Heath.
Fellow Toastmasters and honored guests. When I started working on this path, I was really surprised at the way Toastmasters define the difference between a coach and a mentor. Wasn't exactly what I thought it was. They sort of describe it like, a coach is someone who gives you skills and knowledge and really guides you and tells you what to do. And they said a mentor is more like a wise sage, like a guide who supports you and shares their experience. Well, honestly, I never had many coaches or mentors as a young adult. It wasn't until I became an older professional that I even got a coach, and then I had to pay for it. So I want to share with you, I don't know much about coaching and mentoring, but I do know about being a protege. In order to address this topic, I have to take you way back to the dinosaur era. Yes, I was in college. It was my senior year and I had planned it to a T. You see, I was an excellent student, so I had gotten all of the tough classes behind me. I was going to take racquetball and swimming and all kinds of fun things my senior year. So I signed up for this class called gerontology. I didn't even know what it meant. It was something about old people. And I figured that must be easy because what is there to know about old people? So I got into class and I met Professor Baldwin. He was a big burly man, and when he would teach, he was all over the room. He was so entertaining. He would be telling us about how transportation needs to change and how politics needs to change and housing needs to change. The whole world needs to change because the world is aging. And I was like, this is a trip. Insane professor, but I really like him. So I finished the course, didn't think anything of it. He suggested, Angela, why don't you take 201? And I thought to myself, that won't mess up my senior fun plans. This course was pretty easy. Sure, I'll be there. So I went. And then he said, Angela, why don't you become my research assistant? Don't you need a job this semester? I do, absolutely. And I became his protege, followed him around, graded his papers, asked questions, set up his office hours. I really enjoyed it. I was shocked. That topic that he was teaching now all of a sudden wasn't so boring. I saw how it could really impact the world. At the end of my senior year, he said, Angela, what are you going to do? I said, I've accepted a job with a firm. I'm going to be a manager in training. He said, you're too smart for that. Go to graduate school. And I said, I'm done spending money on education. I'm ready to make some moolah. That's money in Spanish. And so he said, listen, I found a scholarship that I can sign you up for. I'm pretty sure you'll get it. It'll pay all of your graduate school education. And I said, okay. He never steered me in a wrong direction so far. So I went to graduate school on a full scholarship. Now, he was my mentor, my coach. I don't know what you call it, but I was certainly a protege because I followed his instructions to the T. I graduate, I go on, I do all kinds of fun things with my career and things that were impactful. I found out that he was going to be at the Ohio Gerontological Society meeting. I was in DC by that time, but I said, I'm flying there. I haven't seen him since I graduated. I want to tell him all about my career, the programs I've worked on, the impact I've had. So I flew to Ohio. I couldn't wait to go into his presentation. I went in and I did just like I did in grad school. I sat right in the front in the center of the room with a big smile on my face. I couldn't wait until he finished, until I would run up there and say, Professor Baldwin, do you remember me? It's Angela, Heath. And I did. And he looked down at me and he said, not really. I couldn't believe it. This man had changed the course of my life and he didn't remember me. I tried to help him. I was your assistant. You're the one who got me into gerontology. Do you know how many students I've had over the years? And he walked away. I was crushed. I was crushed. And he never found out the impact that he had on my life. So I don't know if he was a mentor or a coach. I just know that he turned me from being someone who was just taking a class because I thought it was easy into a professional gerontologist who's had the opportunity to work on projects nationwide and really impact the field. But he never found out. And that saddens me sometimes. So what I'm saying to you, fellow Toastmasters, when we're doing the mentoring in Toastmasters, it may feel like it's not much, but you never know how you're impacting your fellow Toastmaster. So I encourage you all to serve as mentors, serve as coaches. Let's help each other so that we can all go out there and impact the world in our respective areas of influence. Back to you, Toastmaster of the day.
Thank you very much, Angela, to put all that energy in your speech, because a mentor is a great shortcut in order to achieve the mastery in whatever you are doing. Thank you very much again. Hector, the voting process, the voting process is going to be difficult. Please, could you help me with the time for the speakers?
Yes, Madam Toastmasters, the speakers timing are now in the chat. Marianne at 5:51, Graham at 7:27, Angela at 6:54. Every speaker qualifies for the voting.
Congratulations to all the speakers, all are qualified. Now
And
it's time to vote.
Just to let you know, in the voting, Marianne's was an icebreaker, and we don't vote on the icebreakers. They're held out separately. I just wanted to let everyone know for the voting.
Andy, actually in this club, we haven't followed that rule.
Okay.
Because most people are giving a second or third icebreaker, so we can have a vote.
Okay.
But anyway, the icebreaker has a time between 5 and 6 minutes, right?
4 to 6.
4 to 6. Ah, okay. Ah, but Marianne is qualified. 5 minutes and yes. Thank you very much, David.
Are we getting the sheets for voting, or are we sending it directly to you, David?
There's a link in the chat.
Yes, the link is in the chat. I love the next section because it's the opportunity to everyone to speak. And for that task, the table topic master is going to help us. Please welcome Li Cheng Su.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster and fellow Toastmasters and guests. It's my pleasure to lead the table topic discussion. And first, I want to thank Madam Toastmaster for this wonderful creative topic theme of the day, why we fell in love. Some would say why we fall in love, but anyway, we all fall in love and we all fell in love, at least sometimes. So with that, I prepared several questions around that topic. And our first question is, in relation to love your family, what does forbearing mean to you? This goes to our guest, Lillian. Lillian, would you like to participate?
Sure.
You have 1 to 2 minutes.
Thank you, Madam. Table topics, fellow Toastmasters. What does forbearing mean when it comes to my family? Forbearing means loving them unconditionally, knowing that we as human beings are imperfect, starting with myself, and reminding myself that every day, and to know that I have a family who love me with all my weaknesses and put up with me. I think that's a great place for me to start, and to know that I'll always be there for my family and they'll always be there for me. Yes, that's what forbearing means for me. It's just reminding myself that I'm not perfect, so I should be able, I can love my family, and it's a principle and a decision that I make. Thank you. Back to you, Madam Table Topics.
Thank you, Lydia. Love unconditionally despite of our weakness. What an inspiring speech. My second question is in relation to love ourselves. What is forbearing means to you? This question goes to Rosanna Duncanson.
Thank you very much for that question, Madam Table Topics Master. So what does forbearing mean to me as it relates to loving myself? That's a very interesting one, because I think sometimes we take for granted how important it is to love ourselves, loving ourselves mentally, loving ourselves emotionally, loving ourselves spiritually. You know, sometimes we aren't forbearing with ourselves. We put a lot of expectations on ourselves, you know, pushing ourselves really, really hard or beating ourselves up. We tend to be our worst critic. And so for me, loving myself means, one, being patient, but keeping a nice pat on my back. You did a good job. Things are going well. Self-care and self-love, taking time out to ensure that I'm in a good place. I'm a female, I like spas and facials and just meditation and relaxing. And so taking that time to just care for self. And then that's emotional. There's that forgiveness, one, forgiving yourself, and then forgiving others, learning to let go of things that may hold us back and give us negative emotions. So for me, forbearance is being patient, positive, but ensuring that you take proper care of yourself so that you can then take proper care of others. Back to you.
Thank you, Rosanna. Love ourselves and be patient and take care of ourselves. That's a great message. Our next question. How did you practice the notion of love your neighbor? The question goes to Deborah Carr. Deborah? Is she not here? Oh,
I'm here. I'm here. I'm thinking, which takes me minutes, usually hours. What a wonderful question. Thank you. How do we practice self-love, or how do we practice love for our neighbor? Is that the question? Yes. Go. Well, growing up in a small town where I once said that to my mother, we have 1,500, including all cats, dogs, and chickens. And she said, "You're being very generous." So I grew up in a very small hick town, and everyone knew everyone, and we knew what everything was going on, and we just loved in that little town. You know, it didn't matter if you were the farmer or the baker or whatever. We were all in line together, and it was fabulous, a fabulous way to grow up. However, you know, life changes, and I moved to Chicago for a while from mid-Michigan, and I'm now in West Michigan in Grand Rapids, and the neighbors are closer, things are different, and sometimes you have to just love from a distance. I'm very happy that I'm a teaching Reiki master, because I can send energy, and it does help, even to myself, to just view other families' difference, and to see where I might be looking to add it a little bit different than I should be. But either way, it all boils down to love, regardless if you're in a small town or in a big one like I am now. Back to you.
Thank you, Deborah. So love from distance, respect differences. Great, that's a great message. My next question, how do you deal with the conflict between the love of your job, your career, and the love of your family? This question goes to Kevin. Yes. Okay, Kevin, please.
Madam Topics Master, that question was a no contest because I was faced with that choice many years ago when I started my business. At one time, I traveled 52 weeks out of the year. And the money was coming in and I was enjoying myself and doing well. However, every Sunday, my daughter would grab my leg as I was about to head to the airport. Dad, Dad, don't leave. And my heart would always drop. And I said, well, one day I'm going to do something about this because I love my family. I love my job. The reality is I can get another job because I'm working for myself. What do you need to do, Calvin? And I thought about it. It wasn't a difficult decision for me at all. It was important for me to reinvent myself. Instead of traveling all the time, I decided that I'd sacrifice by choosing an area in my field which would allow me to stay at home for a period of time. In that instance, I decided to become an insurance broker. I became licensed in 15 states. However, I was able to do that business from Texas, from Dallas primarily. And that was a great decision for me because I put my consulting business on the shelf for 15 years, and I was surprised when my kids became adults that there was still ample time for me to continue to grow and resume my career. And things have worked out just great. And I'm happy, and they're happy, and I don't feel sad anymore. Madam Topics Master.
Thank you, Calvin. What a great example of combine our love and to our work and love to our family. That certainly can, it's not necessary have to be separate. The next question is, what does tough love mean to you? This question goes to Donna Knight. Donna, would you please answer this, take this topic?
The first time I heard the quotation, punish severely the first offense, because in it lies the hope of reform. I remember sharing it, and quite a number of people are like, no, that's harsh. And I always say, if to punish severely in that quotation doesn't mean that you have to hurt, damage, or be unkind and evil. But especially if it is that something can be learned, a behavior, a practice, and it goes against what we believe, then we have to consider what tough love means. Now, there is a concept that you're going to say tough love, and therefore people will learn to accept abuse, and they're not the same. As a child growing up, I believe my mother lived and worked on tough love. I firmly believe that. But growing up in a matriarchal home, there were certain things we knew in our family, the entire family. And one of them was we do not accept abuse. And therefore, as a child, I remember the time when we're girls and we're sitting down and we're quarreling over who's to wash the dishes. All I remember is that we just heard, "Pashai!" And that was the last time in my household we quarreled over who did the dishes. They were done every night after that. In fact, if we had to help one another, we did. I also remember the time my sister was abused in a relationship, and my mother sat her down and we all talked, and my mother said, two things are going to happen. One of two, choose. Either you end that relationship and you're forever welcome here, or you stay in an abusive relationship and you leave here. And that is a thing that we learn right throughout our entire family. We learn that, guess what? We're not always going to get our way as kids. And so we believe that tough love is there. And we learn never to accept the abuse, because tough love is not abuse. Madam Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Donna. I totally agree with you. Tough love certainly is different from abuse. We sometimes mix them up in our practice. I still have time for one question because let's say the last question is, in speaking of love, do you feel guilty if you love yourself more than you love your family? Martin, can you take this topic? Are you muted, Martin? We can't hear you.
I think you can hit the space bar, Marty. In theory.
Okay, we probably just move on, right? If
we have time.
we have time. Okay, let's just wait.
Yes, if you want, you can improvise a question.
Or give that question to another member?
Yes, as you wish, because we have time for two
Okay.
more, I think.
Okay, let me give this question to our president, Lo Brown.
And now I forgot the question.
The question is, in speaking of love, do you feel guilty if you love yourself more than love your family?
Ah, yes. Thank you, Madam Topics Master. That's an interesting question. I can imagine how some folks would advocate for loving everyone else. I don't know about first, but certainly be more of an external or a person who really, just loves others around you and kind of put yourself last. In other words, not being so selfish. But while I may have thought that way or believed that earlier in life, I think now I actually am leaning more toward loving myself more, only because I think it's important for us to be our best selves, which is a consequence of really loving ourselves, thinking positive, doing positive things, and just really exhibiting that aura that we do indeed, love ourselves or have the ability to love others because we do have a lot of self-love. And thus, I feel it is then noticed by our family and, quite frankly, everyone around us, and makes for more pleasant company. I know if I'm around people who either don't exhibit a good amount of self-love or otherwise are negative in nature, it's kind of a turnoff and it's just difficult to be around them. But when we have a mentality or a mindset of really loving ourselves a lot, it simply creates a positive feeling inside of us, makes us more pleasant to be around other people. And since we are around our family a lot, certainly therein lies the fact that we're going to really exhibit that the most to them of anybody we know. So in summary, while I may have believed that at one time in the past, loving others was more important, and arguably that could have been a consequence of my significant Christian upbringing, now I believe that loving yourself is more important first, so that others can really share the kind of love that you have. You can share it with them. Madam Topics Master.
Thank you, LeBron. That's a great message. Love ourselves first and then be the best of ourselves so that we have the ability to love others. And this concludes my topic, our topic, table topic speeches. And now, Madam or Mr. Timer, can you give us a timer report?
Certainly, Madam Table Topics Masters. Everybody qualifies. Liliana got you at 104, Rosina at 117, Deborah at 137, Calvin at 149, Donna at 210, and Lou at 212.
So everyone qualifies. All right, thank you, Mr. Timer. And now you can send the vote for best table topic speaker to our vote counter. I believe the link is in the chat. And I'm going to turn over the virtual podium to our Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Heath. Very good questions, and the voting process is going to be very difficult again, very hard. All need feedback. The feedback is a gift, and in order to conduct the following section, Kim Liming, she's going to be the general evaluator today. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Toastmaster of the Day, Carolina. What an awesome evening we're having. We are now starting, as you mentioned, the educational part of the meeting, the evaluations. Part of what draws people, including me, to online presenter Toastmasters is the wonderful and actionable feedback each speaker receives from their forbearing evaluators. With this valuable feedback, the speakers and everyone else watching can use this input to improve their speaking capabilities and, in turn, bring more value to their audiences. My role as general evaluator is to introduce tonight's 3 evaluators. After each evaluator has spoken, I will then reintroduce tonight's helpers who helped to run this meeting so smoothly and so well. Before we start the evaluations, could I please ask the timer for today, Hector, to remind us of the timing requirements for the evaluation speeches. Take it away, Hector.
Absolutely, Madam General Evaluator. The time frame for evaluators are 2 to 3 minutes. I will be using my virtual backgrounds again. At 2 minutes the green, 2.5 the yellow, 3 minutes the red. Back to you.
Thank you, Hector. The first evaluator for tonight is Andy Burns. He will be evaluating speaker number 1, Marianne Grady. Please welcome Andy Burns.
Thank you very much, leader of this section. Fellow Toastmasters, people out there in Zoom, but most especially to Marianne. Today, I'm evaluating the speech that you just delivered, an icebreaker, 4 to 6 minutes. It's given first in any pathway so that we can learn about you. What did I see? What did I hear? How did it make me feel? You gave a master class because of the following. First off, you engage your group. You engaged everybody that was in the audience. You brought them in close. You told personal stories. You had a message that was very important. You had a call to action at the end of your speech. You rounded everything up. You had personal stories about the passion that you had for your cause and why everybody could benefit by identifying a passion for their own cause. You involved friends and how it expanded your leadership in that process. You were clear, enunciating clearly, and most importantly, as they talk about in the manuals, your voice had a vocal range. It was dynamic, had good pitch, it had good pacing, and told stories that brought us in closer, made us feel what you were feeling. What recommendations do I have that might have improved or enhanced your speech? First off, there's a time and place for using visuals. And this might be one where visuals on and off could be helpful. As you talked about your cycling, could have had pictures of everybody around you gathered in the race, all on their bikes. I'm sure you have many pictures that people took during that time. The important thing also is, how do you engage individuals? And we know from WIIFM, what's in it for me is an important concept, because 1 out of 3, that's right, look to your right, look to your left, one of you is going to be diabetic. And 1/3 of you are going to be pre-diabetic. That's an awful lot of people. This talk was important because it spoke to that audience of more than 88 million people that are pre-diabetic and more than 34 million people that are diabetic. You had a very important message. And this is how I felt about your speech. Great job.
Thank you, Andy. Thanks for showing such forbearance while evaluating Marianne's speech. Our second evaluator today is David Carr. He will be evaluating speaker number 2, Graham Cairns. Please welcome David Carr.
Thank you, General Evaluator, fellow online presenters, and especially Graham. It's a pleasure to evaluate Graham. I'd like to think that Graham could learn something from me. I certainly learned some things from him. Graham is a master storyteller, and he's sharing with us tonight a speech that he apparently has done many times on cruise ships. The way he pays his way around the world some of the time, apparently. So that's very cool. He today was doing the speech on visual communication. And so one of the questions is, how well did he tell his story visually? I think he told it quite well. One of my favorite visual elements is where you put up the 5 or 6 propositions, the things that people of my generation and a few other generations were taught in school about Christopher Columbus, and that we think we know, and wrong, 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 and they all get crossed off on the screen. So that was a good element of visual storytelling. Now, I actually had written down on my piece of paper that this was skillful use of OBS Studio or something similar. And Graham and I were doing a little nerdy conversation in the chat about what software he was using. He was actually using the Zoom feature where you're supposed to be able to show your slides as the virtual background, which apparently glitched at some point, because that was why we saw a black screen behind him. Now, my comment was, for improvement, is going to be, if you're going to show a black screen behind you, maybe you can go full screen and let us see your face rather than seeing yourself down in the corner of the screen. And that's actually still my comment for improvement, is a technique that I like and that I try and do myself, is to use the visuals when the visuals are meaningful and add something to the story. But a good speaker like you, Graham, your face, your voice, that is the most powerful special effect. So even in the visual storytelling speech, you might actually have dropped the slides for a few minutes and just talked to us directly. So something to think about for next time. But I should also mention that in addition to actually using on-screen visuals, he painted good pictures. And the one about, if you took, was it 3 Chevy Suburbans and put them end to end, that would be about the length of one of these entire ships that Columbus's people were sailing across the ocean blue. I remember attending a lecture by the investigative journalist David K. Johnson, who is known for investigating taxes and spending and trying to make big numbers sensible to us. And he said that one of the most effective things you could look for is some comparison to something that everybody knows. I think his example was something like, if you took, the edge of your shoe was the average person's salary. If you had 10,000 boot heels stretching up to the moon, that would be about the size of the US deficit, something like that. So something to imagine numbers and make them real to us. So that was a skillful use of a comparison to help us bring into your story. General Evaluator.
Thank you, David, for your wonderful evaluation of Graham Cairns. Now we're moving on to evaluation number 3. Lou Brown will be evaluating speaker number 3, Angela Heath. Please welcome Lou Brown.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters, and of course, Toastmaster Heath. This was an interesting project. The objective was, or is, for you to share a story about your time as a protege. What I found really appealing and engaging about your speech, first of all, is simply your delivery. Your background is great because it spotlights you as a speaker, perfectly framed in your video thumbnail. Vocal pace and clarity were spot on, and eye contact. I will say I kept the thumbnail, or I kept your video as a thumbnail rather than blow it up. So I couldn't tell if actually you were reading notes or not. I don't believe you were. I couldn't see that. So excellent with the eye contact and background in your framing. I also liked how you infused humor in this story. It could have been just this is when I met this person, this is what he taught me, this is what happened later on down the line, and then kind of ended. But you infused some humorous elements in there, which I really like. Of course, first and foremost is him speaking the way he spoke during class. So I got a really good visual of what Professor Baldwin acts like. You could spice that up a little bit more, but maybe trying to talk like Professor Baldwin as opposed to using your voice when you emulate what he said. Now, of course, that would just add to the humor even more. And it could have been a little difficult, but it would have been, again, a great way for you to add more humor to that. And of course, the other element to the humor was at the end when he couldn't even remember you. I found that to be almost ironic given the subject matter, because maybe he was in need of some gerontology advice or help in some way. With that said, now my using the word gerontology, I would have liked to have heard a little bit more about what that is. I think you did share, and I apologize if you did because I'm taking notes at the same time that you're sharing, but maybe how does it differ from geriatrics? That's where I didn't even realize what it was until you shared, but then I'm like, okay, how does that differ from geriatrics? And also perhaps some other wise tidbits that he shared with you as a protege. Now, normally I don't give evaluations on content specifically because I don't really think it's necessary, but I would have gotten a better visual, or at least a better understanding of the twist on the story if you would have had a title, something like The Passionate Protege of the Memorable Mentor or something like that. It would have added to it. And I did want to also point out with your opening that would have also been a great opportunity for you to maybe open with a question. Questions are great to really get us all immediately engaged. Have any of you ever served as a Toastmaster mentor? You know, the definition may be this, but you know what? The definition of a mentor is really that. Otherwise, excellent speech. I enjoyed the entire combination of simply providing us with information as well as some elements of humor. I look forward to your future projects. Back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Lou, for your forbearing evaluation of our third speaker, Angela Heath. Now, could I please call on our timer, Hector, once again, to give us the evaluator's timers report for tonight's evaluations. Take it away, Hector. You might be muted, Hector.
I'm sorry, I was just finished typing. We got 2 evaluators that qualified. Andrew, 3 minutes or 7 seconds. Lou, 3 minutes, 14 seconds. Unfortunately, Dave, you were very close to 4 minutes. And we are not going to be able to include you in the voting tonight.
Thank you, Hector. So 2 of tonight's evaluators qualified with the timing for their evaluations. So thanks in advance to everyone for casting your votes now for best evaluator for tonight's meeting. Now we get to the helper roles part of the meeting, where the people who have helped run tonight's meeting so smoothly will give their short speeches and reports. You will each have 1 minute. First up is our counter, Rick Durling. Please welcome Rick Durling.
Good evening, everybody. Tonight's word of the day, while it was forbearing, turned out to be and. There were quite a few people that definitely were connecting thoughts and sentences with the word and. Andy Byrne I got quite a few for you. Donna Knight, I did as well. Deborah Carr, I found a few in your case, and other people as well. We have a smattering of ahs and ums and you knows, a few double clutches that I caught. Deborah Carr, I caught one with you, and Lillian, our guest, I found one with you as well. Word of the day, April Elise, Lee Sing Zhu, Kim Leeming, Calvin Dorsey, Rosina. I think that's the group, but there may have been others. That is my report today. Back to you.
Thank you, Rick. Next up is our grammarian, April Elazee, with her report. Please welcome April.
Thank you, General Evaluator. It was a pleasure listening to all three excellent speakers today. Notable great usage of the English language, I will mention Marianne Grady when she mentioned perusing the brochure, and also she spoke about ruminating and the salty breeze blowing of the ocean. That was a great descriptor of the visual. And Toastmaster Rick, he already gave examples of the usage of the word of the day. Thank you for that. And Graham did a great job. I actually lost track of what I was supposed to be doing, like keeping track of the grammar, because his history lesson was very intriguing with what he was doing. I was a business major and I absolutely hate history, but I was just so interested in what he was going over. So I'm sorry, I really didn't get too much of what you were saying because I was just paying attention to your speech. And Angela, it was interesting, gerontology, I've never heard of it. And as you were speaking, I actually Googled it. So for those who are not aware, gerontology is a scientific study of old age, process of aging. So that was something new that I learned today. So good job, everyone. Back to you, General Evaluator.
Thank you, April, for all those details. Tonight's watcher is Jim Barber. Please take it away, Jim Barber.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. Kudos to everyone for their video activities this evening. Everyone had a good use of the video frame. Everyone was well lit. Everybody paid attention to the speaker as much as possible. I understand evaluators and so on had other things to do, but as much as possible, everybody was watching what was going on. Everybody had effective backgrounds. I liked that. There was no nose picking or anything obvious like that was distracting. I'm going to focus on one particular individual, Graham. Everybody that from past evaluations know that in the use of slides, I think it's important, and David mentioned this also, that the speaker needs to stay the star of the presentation. And Graham did that so nicely. Even though he's a small part of the frame, he's still in front. There is no disputing who is the star of what's going on. However, in the theme that nobody's perfect, take a look at Graham now, not to make him feel uncomfortable, but he's got a very creative background with a hand reaching out and poking a hole in a Valentine balloon. Very creative. However, I spent the entire evening looking like somebody was trying to poke a hole in Graham's head. Once I saw that, I couldn't get rid of it. But other than that, I think everybody did great tonight. Back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Jim, for that wonderful and graphic description of what was happening to Graham's head. Next up is our chat monitor, Lucas Calafell. Please welcome Lucas.
Thank you, Madam General Evaluator. My report will be short and sweet. I have 3 nuggets of insightful chat activity that we found in the chat. The first one, daylight savings ends November 7th, at least according to Google Calendar on my end. And 2 sayings, one of them from Donna Knight. My mother said that loving yourself was one of the unwritten commandments. And from David Carr, if you can't be with the one you love the one you're with. Back to you.
Thank you, Lucas. Now we're on to another exciting part of the evening. Our vote counter, Andrei Smolenko, is going to reveal the voting results for Best Speaker, Best Table Topics, and Best Evaluator for tonight. Please welcome Andrei Smolenko.
Thank you very much, Madam General Evaluator. It's an honor to announce the winners for tonight. I start with Best Evaluator. And the best evaluator, drum roll, goes to Andrew Byrne. Best table topic speaker goes to Calvin Dorsey. And the best speaker for tonight, drum roll, goes to someone who just got poked into the head with a needle, Graham Cairns. Back to you, Madam General Evaluator.
Thank you, Andre. Congratulations to all our winners tonight. And as far as our theme is concerned, falling in love, that certainly doesn't apply to the joy we receive from joining this club, but I do think that is a real factor for many people when failing in love, when they fail with loving or start hating public speaking. Who knows why we've all fallen in love with Toastmasters and online presenters? For me, it's meetings like tonight that make my heart grow stronger for Toastmasters. Now I'd like to make some comments about tonight's meetings and evaluations. This is such an advanced meeting. I would like to thank all of those, and there were many, that jumped in at the last minute to fill in evaluator and other roles tonight. I'd also like to say that I really liked the way tonight's evaluators talked about how the speakers made them feel and what their emotional responses were to the speeches. I think we all learn a lot when the evaluations are phrased with this kind of forbearing context. I can't think of much to offer as far as suggestions. You guys were awesome, and I just only hope that someday I can do evaluations and do this general evaluator as well as you do. As far as the theme and word of the day were really fun, very unusual. It made the night even more fun with a different theme as far as failing in love. Regarding table topics, great job for the theme of falling in love. Not to be picky, but the theme of the day was actually failing in love. And as you can see from my background, I didn't get that right either. And this actual doing falling in love rather than failing in love illustrates a very interesting coping mechanism of our brains. Our brains try to protect and help us by correcting mistakes that we read. For example, my last name is Leeming, but our brains aren't familiar with that word. So 9 times out of 10, people read learning rather than leeming. Tonight, your brain apparently preferred to fall in love rather than to fail in love because that's what you read. Thanks for that. To close my portion of the meeting, I'll tell you all about my eye doctor. He's great because he's forbearing and leans toward homeopathic remedies rather than surgery. Anyway, I think my eye doctor is starting to fail in love with me. In the past, every time I left my appointment, my eye doctor always handed me eye drops and said, "I care for you." This time he didn't even say he'd give me a call. And with that, back to you, Toastmaster of the Day, Carolina.
Thank you very much, Kim. And thank you all for your participation. You did a great job as speakers. Why do we fail in love? I don't know. Maybe someday I'll have the answer to that question. Mr. President, back to you.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster of the Day. Wonderful meeting. Wow, this seemed to go by pretty quickly for me. It was just so exciting. The speeches were wonderful. I believe everyone got a chance to talk. If not, certainly we'll, because it was such a small group, that will certainly make sure that happens next time. You know what's funny with the topic? I think when I first looked, it also sounded like, or it looked to me like fall in love. But then when you said fail in love, it kind of made me think of that song from the 60s. I'm probably dating myself, but why do fools fail in love? Maybe it could have been a different title there. Anyway, before we get to Andy's part, which I know he's anxious to unmute and get that going because we do need to fill roles for next week, let's hear from Lillian. Lillian, again, I believe this is your second, possibly third time visiting us, and thank you so much for joining us again. What did you gain from this evening's meeting?
Thank you so much. This is like my 10th time, actually. I just love this club. I try my best to show up and learn. You're such an advanced club. The speeches are always the speeches that I aspire to be a speaker. You guys are just amazing. And that's why I love to come. I just love to come and listen to advanced speakers and how they deliver their speeches. Today, I especially also enjoyed the evaluation piece of the meeting. I felt like the evaluations are, they were very constructive. They can really help the speaker get even to the next level. They're really good, and that can take them to the next level. So I really got benefit from the evaluation piece as well. So thank you for welcoming me, and you may see me again. I just love to come and observe.
Awesome. And I think as visiting us 10 times, that should make you an honorary member. Maybe even after 5, we shouldn't have to wait till 10. I was informed that we did have another guest join us a little later in the meeting. Basanti, hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Perhaps you can unmute and share with us what you have gained from the time you were with us.
Hello, everybody. I am Basanti Moharjan from Nepal. It's morning time over here, 6:45, and I'm also Toastmaster here in Nepal, Healers Toastmasters Club since 1 year. And actually, I was invited by our Miss Angela, and I'm here to learn. I met her in Clubhouse actually, and yes, I love to learn new things from new people, and I also love to speak in table topics. So I joined here, but unfortunately today I joined a little late, and maybe next time I can attend earlier and I can take part in table topic and meet you all people, learn lots of things from you beautiful people here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. Better late than never. Certainly come back and visit us again so that you can take part in the table topics. That would be awesome. And Lily and Basanti, if you have any questions related to membership, feel free to reach out to our VPM, Marianne Grady. She will share with you some additional information, maybe take you through aspects of our website so you can learn a little bit more. That concludes tonight's meeting. I officially close this meeting. Please, I think I'm able to stop the recording here, so I will stop the recording.